Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In podcast. Coming off the heels of UFC 300, incredible pay-per-view. We're at the Apex this week for UFC Vegas 91. Headlined by flyweights. We have Matheus Nicolau taking on Alex Perez. And then light heavyweights, Farrakome and Ryan Spann versus Bogdan Guskov. 13 total fights. Another one of these fight nights with not a big name value, but when I look through the lineup, I think we're in for a treat. Lots of finishes. I'm pretty excited for Saturday. Before we jump into things, do us a favor, like, subscribe, help you boys out a little bit. As always, turn it over to you. Let you do a quick recap of UFC 300. Always transparent, and we'll jump into this card, man.
Yeah, we were both dog hunting for that UFC 300 card, and it looks like for both of our cards, none of our underdogs hit, and the only times that we laid juice, we hit.
Right.
That stinks, man. You know,
and they all look like underdogs too.
Yeah, very
At least
true.
my two did.
No, mine did as well. I tried to go like underdog girls. I was like, surely that's a plus money play, or that's a plus EV play, and no, it was not. Calvin Kattar versus Aljo Sterling. Sterling, man, again, not really winning fans with his performance, but he's getting it done. You know, that's ultimately the only thing that matters. Diego Lopez versus Sadiq Youssef. I don't know, man. Lopez is the real deal. Kind of turning into one of my favorite prospects to watch. You know, He's certainly exciting. Curious to see how they match him up moving forward, because there's no easy money after Sadiq Youssef. You know, so probably get some tough matchups looking forward. We were both on Saryukin round 2 and round 3. I thought it looked good. Like, he got him in some positions that I liked. Just, you know, Charles Oliveira, he's the man. I'm glad he didn't get finished, to be honest with you. Like, I still think that there's some life in Oliveira, but he's gotten some pretty tough matchups. Like, the wrestle heavy game plan seems to kind of be his Achilles heel. Right. And we saw that in the Saryukin fight. Saryukin just couldn't get the submissions done. Then you had the over 3.5 rounds in Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje. Paid a little bit of juice for it, but that was a winning ticket right there.
You have no idea. You have no idea how close I was to playing Fight Goes the Distance.
Oh,
that would have been the worst
beat. Yeah, that would have been tough. But you did end up hitting the over 3.5 rounds. You ended up the night minus 2.2 units. Looking over at my card, none of my people fought any better. I had Yao Xiaonan. I mean, there were times where I thought the fight, you know, she could have just kept it on the feet. Maybe it was a little bit different, but Weili really showcased that she had a more well-rounded skill set and held on as the champion. That was a plus 400 shot. I don't know. Maybe one of the better plus money plays that I made, I guess. Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison. Holm decided to get into the clinch with the judo specialist. It was honestly one of the oddest decisions I've ever seen. Yeah. Looked like she threw the fight. And then Marina Rodriguez versus Jessica Andrade. To be honest with you, I'm not remembering that fight that much.
I don't really remember it either, to be honest with you.
Pretty sure Rodriguez got finished. I figure she did.
No, I don't think she got finished. She lost the decision, but I think Jessica looked pretty good.
Well, all my plus money girls let me down for sure. All the Saryukin sub props and round 2 and 3 props, those all missed. I honestly got probably saved here. Garbrandt wins decision only. That one didn't make it to the scorecards. I thought he looked quick and everything, but Figueiredo showcased a little bit more well-rounded skill set, kind of the story of the night. Bobby Green versus Jim Miller. Again, another really close one that just voided out. Miller, tough as nails. I'm glad he didn't get finished. It would have been sick to see him get the win, but I'm glad that he did not get finished. And then Prochaska, scorecards, no action. I mean, Rakic, he's kind of a decision machine, and he was chewing up Prochaska's leg early first round. I thought that it was going to be a bad night, but Prochaska somehow ended up clipping him. That was a pretty awesome finish. Hill by TKO round 1. I mean, I knew that he had to get it done quick before Pereira made those reads. He did not sell out like I thought he did, though. Looked like he was kind of scared of the moment. I'd be too. Pereira was shooting a arrow at me,
right?
You know? And then Sadiq Youssef versus Diego Lopes. I didn't take a side on that fight. I just picked the violence, and that one ended up hitting. Still minus 4.48 units on the night for me. So even though it was an amazing card, certainly a forgettable night for the both of us.
Sure.
Let's see. All right, so we move on to the first fight of the night, where we see Maheshate taking on Gabriel Benitez in the lightweight division. So this is kind of like a tough fight to call. The biggest question is Benitez completely over the hill at this point in his career or not? Maheshate hasn't really lived up to the potential coming into the UFC. He really, really young prospect from China. He won his first fight. Forget who against, Steve Garcia. Won his first fight against Steve Garcia, and then got a pretty tough matchup against Rafa Garcia, who's got a well-rounded skill set, and then got caught in a striking matchup against Vladislav Borishev. Mm-hmm. This is a fight where if he fights to Gabriel Benitez's pace and gets into a point fighting match, I could certainly see Benitez being able to land the more punishing kicks and kind of dance around the octagon and score a decision. But truthfully, I think that this is a perfect spot for Maheshate to kind of revert back to what got him his first win in the UFC, and that's aggression early. I watched Gabriel Benitez, and at this point in his career, he's not moving as well, and he certainly isn't reacting to punches as well as he has in the past. I think that that's where Maheshate can capitalize. And then you kind of look at Gabriel Benitez in his career. The UFC has used him in the past for bounce back opportunities for fighters that they want to promote. So I'll take a look at Onama. David Onama's first pro loss to Mason Jones. Who do they give him in the fight next? Gabriel Benitez. Billy Q, he's 4-0 in the UFC. His first loss in the UFC to Gavin Tucker. Gabriel Benitez is his bounce back fight. Jim Miller needed that win to be able to make it to the UFC 300 card. And I feel like the UFC was gifting Gabriel Benitez for him. So, it even goes back further than that. The trying to give him Omar Morales as an undefeated prospect, it just seems like this is a perfect opportunity. History says that with a 10-year age gap, Maheshate should be the favorite here. And I do think that there's potential for him to get a finish. I wouldn't necessarily love laying minus 200 because if this fight does drag out, I could see him get outclassed by a more experienced fighter in Gabriel Benitez. But I do think that there is a opportunity to take Maheshate inside the distance for around even money. And I think that there's some juice left to squeeze on that prop specifically. So Maheshate inside the distance is the way I'm looking at this fight.
Same way I'm looking at it as well, man. I don't think I could, like you said, couldn't lay minus 200 on Maheshate here. Like 24 years old. The guy's still very green. He's coming off 2 losses in a row. That's enough for me to not want to lay the juice here. But I'm 100% with you on the side with Gabriel Benitez, man. I think the guy looks a whole lot slower right now. I think the durability is fading. And even the guys that he's beaten, like Antiveros, Justin James, like there's 0 really notable wins in the last little bit of time for him. And I just trust Maheshate, like you said, to be a little bit more aggressive. He's big, lightweight, like 6 foot tall. And I think he's going to go in there and land one of these shots probably in the first round or two. I kind of looked at doesn't go the distance at minus 165, but to get, close to pick'ems on the fighter I see finishing this fight majority of the time, I like that Maheshate inside the distance as well, man. Moving down to women's flyweight, we got Ivana Petrovic taking on Liang. First thing that I noticed when I was looking at the betting lines for this card, the over 1.5 is minus 135 and doesn't go the distance is minus 500. Like typically when it's that juice to not see the scorecard, I'm thinking the under 1.5 is going to be like minus 135. But I think the verdict's just out that Liang probably is going to get out of the first round, but she does not have the gas for the second and third round. It's just kind of one of those things that's kind of proven itself. And it's something I'm trying to take advantage of here, man. So I do think Na might be a little live early. She's got like 11 of her 16 wins inside the first round, like 11 of them by submission. And, even in the JJ fight, she's out there landing multiple takedowns in the first round. So I wouldn't doubt maybe she gets to her positions early in this fight. But again, super hard to trust her. Just right before the pod started, I released a half unit on Petrovic round 2 and 3 at 340 and 600. Just one of those things. I'm trying to think back of some other fighters that I've done it before, but I just think when you see Na Liang in front of you and she's shown us time and time again she doesn't have the gas, I really want to take these round 2 and 3 shots. So I think Ivana Petrovic, round 2 TKO is how this fight's going to play out.
I will go ahead and help you out with who you were trying to think of where you've capitalized on it before. It would be Gilbert Burns' brother, Herbert Burns, against Julio Arce, where you hit a round 2 prop. Because if it doesn't work out in that first 5 minutes, they give up. They fucking give up. And I see the exact same thing, man. So I might end up tailing that. I don't have much faith in Petrovic. I don't think that she's that great, but I do think that she's good enough to withstand the early pressure of Na Liang. She might have to deal with a couple of takedowns, but every round starts on the feet, and I do think that Liang will look for the first opportunity out if she doesn't get that finish. So yeah, the Petrovic props, I really do. I like that for sure. Moving up to the lightweight division, James Llontop versus Taco Chris Padilla. Llontop, he looks serviceable. He's coming out of Peru. I'm not really, I know he trains with Diego Lopez, but I'm not really convinced that he's gotten the best looks leading up until this point. He looks like I think I might have said this already, but a serviceable fighter. He is decent, but I haven't really been blown away, and I certainly haven't seen why they've got him as a minus 500 in his debut. I could be wrong. I'd like to see him prove me wrong, but just physically looking at him, I feel like even though he's 6 foot at this weight class, it looks like he could probably drop a weight class. He's got a little bit of extra weight on him. And like I said, there's not like some glaring athleticism that's making me think that he's going to be a future top 15 guy. But he looks decent all around. I look at Taco Padilla. He's 5'9", so a little bit short for the weight class, but he's built, dude. Like he's absolutely shredded. I have written down here, he's like a little Eric Anders. You can obviously tell that he's an athlete at heart. He has a super grindy pace. He's very, very physical in the clinch. He looks to push you up against the cage, and he can get some pretty good offense off in the clinch. This looks like a setup fight for Diego Lopez's boy, but I'm not 100% convinced. And Chris Padilla, even though he hasn't been fighting the best of competition, I think he gets this shot. He got this shot with a win over Justin James. Yeah. Who faded in round 2, very Justin James of him. It's tough to call this fight because we're not having much. We don't have too much information on like the quality of fighters that Padilla has been fighting. Or at least getting wins against. So this is a sit back and watch fight, but I would say that I've made worse plus 350 plays in my life. This is low level at the end of the day until proven otherwise. I think that this is relatively low level, and this isn't the Peruvian regional scene. This could be one of the tougher fights that Llontop's gotten in his career.
Think you might be on a little bit of an island this week. I don't see too much love online for Chris Padilla at all. It's one that, truth be told, I haven't really got a lot of time to dig into this one, but it screams dogger pass to me as well. I did do a little bit on Llontop when he was scheduled to fight Gabe Green, and it was like a pick 'em, and I was like, okay, that's more reasonable. And now you're talking about a massive favorite in a debut, someone that I'm still not sold on as well. Somebody that I'd like to gather a little bit more data on. When I look at Padilla, can you see me?
Hello. Okay.
Sorry about that. When we look at Chris Padilla, man, he's kind of like a regional vet who's kind of grinded his way, doesn't have really a shiny record or anything. The skill set doesn't really impress me too much on the Padilla side of the few fights that I did watch, but I do agree with you. It's kind of like a grindy pace, and I don't know, man. The line is really the only reason I would look at Chris Padilla. There's not much that I've seen from him that makes me kind of want to back him in a UFC fight. But same reason I can say I've seen nothing that James Llontop should be minus 400, minus 500 in a fight period. So maybe I get there too with you. Just kind of need to dig around it a little bit more. Moving down, women's straw weight, Katlen Souza taking on Mann. Just plain and simple, man. I don't have the balls to play Mann here, but I think the line's pretty off. Just truth be told, I think Marnic is a really tough girl, someone who's not easy to get out of there. Watching a little bit of her fights, she doesn't offer too much on the feet, but she will go to her takedowns. You haven't really got to see it against Bruna Brazil and Julian Knudsen, however you say her name. But she will go to her takedowns, and I do think that that's kind of the way you want to fight Katlen Souza. When I look at Katlen Souza, a massive favorite who probably doesn't have too much finishing upside with as tough as Marnic is. She's coming off of a bad knee injury as well, a layoff. She's dropping to 115 pounds. I don't see enough. There's too many red flags for her to be a massive favorite as well. And when you look at Mann, again, I don't think I'm going to bet her, but when you see an underdog who has potential to land takedowns, that's almost just as interesting to me as when I look at underdogs with finishing upside. So I think the line's wide. I probably am not going to get there to Mann, but shit, I'll take her. I'll make it interesting. We'll pick Mann. I think that's where the value.
So, you look.
I said I think that's where the value is.
I can agree with that. Yeah. I look at Katlen Souza. Last two times that she's been at strawweight, she's gotten finished. Diane Cordoso and Ariane Carnelosi, and just all of her losses in general, she's getting finished. And I think that Mann is subject to have a little bit more of a physicality advantage here, even though we've seen Souza in higher weight classes. I haven't been terribly impressed with her, to be honest with you. Mann, she's a little undersized for the weight class. She certainly, has to deal with a reach disadvantage in just about every single one of her fights. I do think that she's unproven. This would probably be the best one on her record. But, honestly, from last week, I'm still a little scarred trying to take the dog shot on the women. And I feel like this is a passable fight. I mean, honestly, up until the main card, these are all passable fights. I feel like a lot of the times, we feel like obligated to make some bets. But if you scattered these first 6 fights onto any other fight night in the year, I think that we're passing up on a lot of these spots. But this is a betting show, so we got to try and find some plays. This one, I do think that I can sleep at night just passing it up, however it goes. Though, this is about as low level as it gets, so it is what it is. Moving up to the heavyweight, heavyweights, Don'Tale Mayes versus Caio Machado. Speaking of bottom of the barrel, I mean, this is about as low as it gets right here. I played Caio Machado against Mick Parkin at plus 275 and was pretty tore up that he didn't get that nod. We still haven't found that spot to fade Mick Parkin, but I promise you it's coming. I will be on that train too. Like, I guarantee it. But now he's fighting somebody with more UFC experience, certainly a spotty record in Don'Tale Mayes, but he has some UFC caliber wins, and you're having to lay juice on Caio Machado. Like, I feel like Don'Tale Mayes is more athletic. He's more experienced. He has more technical skills as a fighter. This is a fight where, even though all that does make you want to play him, I wouldn't risk more than like a unit, like, even if your gut tells you that this is the best play on the card, trusting Don'Tale Mayes with your money is a really tough thing to do. And it has, bit plenty of people in the ass in the past. Yep. So yes, Mayes is the play for me. I'm hoping that this line continues to move the Machado direction, but plus money on Don'Tale Mayes in this specific matchup is probably the play. Not just value, but it's probably the play. So I think that you feel the same on this one, and I'd have to agree with you. Don'Tale Mayes, money line.
for just one unit, and that's it. I totally agree with
no
that.
No more than that, right?
Yeah, low-level heavyweights, man, always super volatile. You got to finish potential, but if it hits that over 1.5, there's potential it just as a slot fest, So, but all that I do think kind of favors Dontel Mays, who, like you said, more experience at the UFC level, the ability to kind of really mix things up. I think if he's smart and watches that Mick Parkin fight, he goes out here and goes to his wrestling. And even on the feet, I think the size and things of Dontel will really come in handy here. With Machado, I like the volume on the feet, but he just doesn't strike me as a guy who's too dangerous, just to be honest with you, man. With Dontel, Machado's right there on par with the people that Dontel Mays has beaten. And when I look at who's beaten Dontel Mays, Nascimento, Cyril Gahn, like Kyle Machado's not on that level. I can 100% say that. So I took Dontel Mays, one unit at plus 105. I think it's about 48%, and I cap him at about 55% comfortably. So 7-8% edge, comfortable with parting with a unit on Dontel there, man. Moving down, back to the lightweight division, we have Austen Hubbard taking on Michael Figlak. I kind of wanted to take the dog shot on Austen Hubbard a little earlier in the week because in my eyes, the fight does feel a little bit 50-50. Statistically, everything favors Austen Hubbard. The over 2.5 is like minus 260 or something, which automatically makes me kind of want to lean the dog as well. It's just really hard to pull the trigger on Austen Hubbard because, outside of Max Roshkoff guy quitting on the still, it's been like 7 years since Austen Hubbard's finished anybody. And even that fight was seconds left in the 5th round of that fight. He's just very happy to skirt around the outside, use his calf kicks. I think he could use some wrestling here, but I'm necessarily not even really sold on Austen Hubbard's takedown defense to begin with. So he's just not a very dangerous guy. And so that's kind of keeping me off wanting to play him this week. With Figlak, he's another guy with very little finishing ability in my eyes. And I think that's why the over is so juiced. I thought watching his last fight back, I know it was kind of a setup spot for Firas Ziem in Paris, but it was the way he lost, man. Like, Ziem doesn't take people down. Ziem doesn't toss people around and control them for 7+ minutes. That's typically getting done to him. And the way he was kind of bullied in the clinch and taken down, not much off of his back, it wasn't the best look to me. It was enough to 100% not lay juice on Michael Figlak this weekend. So I feel like it's dog or pass. I'm going to side with Austen Hubbard by decision. You're on mute. Yeah.
I'm not super confident with this pick, but I'd have to agree with you. Like Hubbard, whenever I see plus money beside his name, I think that's always a solid play. His last loss is to somebody who I kind of feel the same way. Kurt Holloway, Cody Gibson, both those guys are like dogs that you want to play at dog money. They'll fight for your money. They're tough. They're gritty. And I do kind of feel like Austen Hubbard kind of leans too much on his durability to get the job done. He's not exceptional anywhere, but he certainly can wear you out, wear you down. And I see this fight going over, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if Figlak saw yet another loss here. I don't really think that the UFC is too concerned with promoting either of these guys. And this is just more of like a shaving off the fat of the roster. Whoever wins this one probably gets a few more fights in the UFC. Whoever loses probably gets cut. So Austen Hubbard, dog money, that's probably where I'm leaning. Again, it's really tough to want to lay more than a unit on him, even if you were picking him. But I'll take Hubbard at dog money. Moving up the card, first fight of the prelim main event, Rani Yahya taking on Victor Henry. Yes, I think that Yahya is way past his prime at this point, but I do feel like there are winnable matchups in the bantamweight division for him. The last fight that he had against Montel Jackson, it's a really tough matchup for a lot of people. That's just is kind of cruel that the UFC gave one of the fastest fighters in the UFC to a aging out grappler. I tried to play the over 1.5 in that fight. I think Yahya was like 30, I forget. He was like 32-0 going over 1.5, some crazy statistic. And of course, the one time that I played it, he gets annihilated early. At least here against Victor Henry, like I don't think that Victor Henry has proven much as far as his finishing abilities. You know, you look at Henry, he's a -500 favorite in this matchup, but fight goes the distance is even money. Like if I'm betting a -500 favorite, you know, you better be smoking dudes, and that's just not happening here in Victor Henry. I think that there's not really a world where Yahya goes out here and wins minutes. I just think that the optics will be in Victor Henry's favor, who kind of pushes the pace and makes it grindy. But I do think that Victor Henry isn't like technically sound enough to completely avoid some tricky situations with a good enough grappler like Rani Yahya. So I do think that there's going to be opportunities for Yahya to capitalize on some mistakes that Henry makes, maybe similar to Diego Lopes versus Movsar Evloev, even though Evloev more, you know, top control dominant, he still has to be on the ground with a BJJ specialist. And I do think that we're going to get something like that here. I was looking at Rani Yahya decision, no action, and you're still getting Rani Yahya at plus 300 for that. You only take like a 30-point hit. And truthfully, I think that the majority of the finishing potential is on the Yahya side, at least enough for me to play plus 300 on it. I'd like to see Victor Henry prove me wrong, but I'm not even sure he has a UFC finish yet. He might.
I don't think he does.
I don't think he does either. So yeah, I actually like the Yahya decision, no action, finish only, if you will, and that's probably how I play it. Completely.
So I agree, and I kind of disagree. I was looking at Victor finish only, and I was hoping it would be a decent price, but it's -450, and so the books kind of know. You know, Victor's never been finished in his career, so which is a 30-plus pro fight career. This will be his 30th fight, so I felt comfortable saying that I kind of feel like the finish upside was on Victor Henry here. I think he's deserving of a favorite, but we're kind of getting to the point where we're talking about the line being wide. You got to remember he was a massive favorite against an aging veteran and a Sun Sao as well, and he drops the ball. So there's another reason not to lay the chalk here. Yahya, super impressive, man. 21 wins by submission. You know, he's a motherfucker on the mat. I just don't think he's going to have success getting Victor Henry down to the mat here. And I just kind of feel like when the fight's on the feet, the pressure, the volume that Victor's going to throw will be enough to get the job done. I kind of felt safe saying that I didn't think Victor was going to get finished. And it's, again, kind of like yourself, not sold on his finishing potential. So I have the fight goes the distance at Pick'em's written down here in my notes as something that I was kind of eyeing. I hate to really kind of play that when you have a almost 40-year-old standing across the octagon from him. But, you know, I kind of feel like it goes to decision more times than not. I'm going to side with Victor Henry here.
Yeah, I mean, one other thing, I feel like Victor Henry only has one path to victory. So yet another reason why I don't think the -500 is warranted. And it is to knock him out. And that's the least likely way that Victor Henry's won all of his professional matches is by finishing somebody on the feet. So I'm certainly not convinced. And even though he hasn't been finished in 30 professional fights, he has been submitted in some grappling matches before. And if Yahya gets him on the ground, I do think that there's going to be some tricky situations for him. So
all right,
that's my argument for Yahya being able to finish him, because I'm not convinced Henry can do it on the feet. And I certainly am convinced that Yahya has all of the skill set to be able to make it happen against Henry. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm on the decision, no action.
Now we're to the main event, or the main card, and it's a banger opening in the fight, man. Tim Means and Uros Medic. I think this is a solid ass fight. Early on in this fight, I really do think Uros Medic just might light Tim Means up, man. I think at kickboxing range, these guys are just on different levels. I think Uros throws really, really nice kicks. He switches his, levels. He's a much more diverse striker. And early on, I think there's going to be a massive speed advantage for Uros Medic that could cause Tim a lot of trouble what I'm worried about is the gas tank for Uros Medic. Now, I know in the Samuelsberger fight, it's not like he faded, but Tim Means is kind of the guy that might let you whoop up on him for a little bit, and all the kicks, the kind of stuff that Uros throws. I'm kind of worried that come round 3, if Tim's still there, might get a little bit hairy. He's also been subbed in both of his losses. Interesting there. But with Tim, dude's a grinder. He'll put you on the fence. He'll land the dirty boxing. Here lately in his career, he's trying to do a little bit more grappling than he used to do. But I don't really like what I'm seeing, honestly, man. I do think he's slowing down a little bit. I think he's not reacting well to shots. When he does get hit, he seems to pretty much get subbed instantaneously. Don't know how much of a threat Uros Medic by sub is, but I do think Uros Medic can hurt him on the feet and likely get the finish. I got 1.7 units on the under 2.5 here at -170. Tweeted it earlier in the week. They combined for like almost an 87% finish rate, and you're getting that at like 67% or something stupid, So I do feel like there's a lot of value on these guys finishing the fight here. So I'm going to go Medic. I like the under 2.5 as well.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that, even if Medic slows down in the later rounds, that Tim Means is going to be able to capitalize on the finish. So while I agree this fight goes under, I'd be more inclined to look at the Medic inside the distance to target this fight, see what kind of number that is. I don't know what it is, but that's just you saying it out loud. It's like, well, Oralby broke him. I mean, like the way that he fought him, there were plenty of finishing opportunities that I think anybody else in the division that gets hit with what Medic was able to hit Oralby by is going to sleep. And then Jalen Turner, he has so much finishing potential early that it's just one of those things that can happen where, we haven't seen him lose to anybody else like that. Means already being in his 40s now. I feel like the Fielho win was somebody in Fielho who was not confident. And coming into that fight, I think that Fielho was riding a 3-fight losing streak. You had seen him kind of broken as a man, and he tried to fight Tim Means. He tried to fight Tim Means at his own game, and it didn't work out for him. He completely lost that killer mentality that got him a few wins whenever he joined the UFC. And, Uros Medic, I do feel like even though he was broken in that last fight against Oralby, he's going to continue to deliver the hard enough punches to finish guys. And Tim Means, historically, doesn't really react well, especially whenever people throw in combination. He kind of forgets to put up his guard every once in a while, and you'll see him get caught cleanly. And I think that Medic is not the guy that you want to get caught clean with. So, yeah, I'm looking at Medic wins by TKO at -105. That's probably how I'll look to play this fight. It stinks to get, like you said, Means gets hurt, gets subbed. That would suck to lose it that way. But I certainly feel like Medic has all of the finishing potential here. I'm not really too worried about Tim Means getting it done. And I think that he might need like a 5-round fight for that to happen. Because from what I've seen, like I do like where Medic is at this point in his career. So I think the -300 is warranted. And I'd be looking to play him inside the distance. Moving down a few weight classes to the featherweight division, Jonathan Pearce taking on David Onama. I think Pearce is the real deal, man. He's Tennessee born, happy that he's representing us. He debuted in Lausanne's backyard in Boston and dropped that fight. And then went 5-0 against some, pretty decent names, including Christian Rodriguez, who's kind of been the fraud checker. He got past the fraud checker, and I think that's says a lot more than what his recent loss does. Brito, it's one of those guys where you can't have a mental slip up. He's too explosive, he's too strong, and he's a Brazilian, so he can wrap up some pretty dirt nasty submissions. I look at Onama and I feel like he has all of the makings of a good fighter, but he just hasn't lived up to his potential. I don't really like the way that he reacts. I know we've talked about it in the past. Sometimes when he gets hit, it's like his controller died. He'll take a few more and his body isn't reacting how I want him to. I look at this fight, and truthfully, I think that this is the Mason Jones fight all over again, for David Onama. I think that Pearce is going to relentlessly pursue the takedowns. I think that in this fight, Onama's get-up game is good enough, and Jonathan Pearce is so consistent with his takedowns that I do think that Pearce sets a new personal record, probably surpasses the 6 takedowns that he's had in past fights in the UFC. And I do think that he controls him for, close to two or more rounds, and we see kind of a boring decision. Potentially, Onama breaks towards the end, but I do think that Jonathan Pearce is a pretty solid play. Looks like there's a lot of people on Onama. I've seen, some locks of the weeks on Onama, and I don't see it, man. Like I said, I think he's a decent fighter, but I think that this is an awful matchup for him, and I think that we've seen it in the past that this is a tough stylistic matchup for him. So I'm on Jonathan Pearce. I think Tennessee boy gets it done one more time.
Never forget that last fight, man. Get up and do something, boy. Fucking gets up and ninja chokes him, dude. After Pearce was looking like -400 or 500 in that fight, man, dominating. And I think, honestly, Onama and Brito are really good comparisons with each other. I think they're both explosive athletes. I think JSP has to beware of pretty much the same thing here. Big power and the ability to muscle a submission, So barring no lapse in fight IQ again, I'm on the JSP side as well. Onama, I think a lot of his success just comes from him being so gifted athletically, But I will say there's the Mason Jones fight, the Nate Landwehr fight. He has a ton of heart, man. Like, he doesn't quit on himself. He does remain dangerous. It's so easy to back Jonathan Pearce because you know what he's going to do. The guy doesn't come out there and try to strike with anybody. He's going to go out there and shoot takedowns. The cardio is elite. The mat returns are elite. Like, Onama may get back to his feet, but he's going to get taken down yet again. And when I watched the Nate Landwehr fight, I mean, dude, Onama on the stool going into round 2 is gassing out. And I really do think that not being able to stop the takedowns and the pace that Jonathan's going to bring into this fight, I think is going to zap David Onama's cardio again. And I think as long as Jonathan Pearce gets out of round 1, I think he's going to coast in top position. So I like the Jonathan Pearce side as well, man. Glad to have us both on the Tennessee boy. Moving up to heavyweight, Jhonata Diniz taking on Austen Lane. I'd be short, man. I really don't have too much faith in Austen Lane. Justin Taffa, Greg Hardy, multiple guys. I think it's 4 times now he's been TKO'd stiff in round 1. He's tall. He's athletic. But for me, you can kind of definitely tell that MMA is something this guy kind of picked up later on in life. I don't feel like he's too really good anywhere, just kind of relies on his length and athleticism. Got him to the regional scene, but at the UFC level, man, I don't think it's going to fly. I don't necessarily think he's live to land too many takedowns here. And if the fight plays out on the feet, the kickboxing experience, what I've seen from Jhonata Diniz, I like the left hook. Guy looks pretty dangerous on the feet, and that's where I see it playing out. So I think he lands on the chin in Austen Lane in round 1 and probably knocks him out.
Yeah, I mean, you still have to lay juice to play Diniz round 1 TKO.
I'm about to say, I know. Fighter, method, and around. You still got to lay juice.
Even that being said, though, it's probably a pretty decent play. Like, I feel like he knocks him out in the first round at like 60% of the time. So if you're getting 50%, probably worth a shot. It's like Robelis to Spain, if they're matching them up against lower level heavyweights that don't really have a grappling path, they're probably fucked, and I do feel like that's kind of what we're seeing here. Lane, all of his wins are by knockout except for one. And the dude that he submitted was like 5-9, it was like real trash pickup win. I did not watch it, but I can't imagine that was any, high level fighting that I missed. I do feel like this is a setup fight for another like heavyweight, destroyer on the feet, and giving him a main card spot to kind of showcase his skills. So yeah, I think Diniz gets it done relatively quickly. Moving on to the featured bout of the evening, Karine Silva taking on Ariane Lipski in the flyweight division. Dang, dude, I remember looking at this fight a couple weeks ago and seeing that Karine Silva was plus money. Almost grabbed her for our fantasy league, and then somebody picked her up, and I completely forgot about it. Next time that I looked, she's minus 155, and I'm like, all right, well, I missed out on all of the CLV right there, all of the value that was there. Because at the end of the day, she's I don't think that she's earned any type of confidence to be able to lay on her. Like, she's looked pretty decent. She's got 100% finish rate, 8 TKOs, 9 submissions, and she's riding a 6-fight submission streak. You think that she's a well-rounded fighter, but I do think that she's a little bit of a sub or bust here. I do think that this is a straight up striker versus grappler match. You look at all of Karine Silva's TKO wins, and she's yet to have one over a girl with a positive record. So, that's certainly questionable. And then you look at Lipski, and yes, she does get finished, but she's never been submitted. So if, Karine Silva is almost a sub or bust, Lipski's never been submitted, it's a tough one to call. I watch both these girls. They throw hard. Silva's striking looked pretty decent. She had some good kicks in her last fight against Moroz, but I think Lipski throws a whole lot harder. And if she can avoid an early submission, I think that Silva's paths to victory diminish drastically if she doesn't get a first round sub. I kind of leaning towards Lipski here as it gets into the plus money. I don't know how high it's going to go. But if it continues down this path, like, what are we looking at? So it looks like Silva's kind of capping out at minus 160. But I think Lipski plus 135, if that gets up to plus 150, I certainly think that she's the side here. Give her the vet lesson. She certainly had more fights at a higher caliber. And Karine Silva has not shown me much outside of first round subs, which are only going to get you so far against high level women in the UFC. I think that this was purposeful matchmaking by the UFC to give Silva somebody who's never been submitted, another Brazilian who's shown that she can hang with some of the UFC talent. So give me Lipski at dog money at this point. I think that she could teach her a little bet lesson here.
Betting wise, I'm on the under 2.5 here. I do think this fight doesn't see the distance. But I'm kind of with you, man. If I had to pick a money line side here, I think it's Ariane Lipski, brother. Silva, like 21 pro fights and 20 of them haven't gone the distance. You don't typically see that in a women's fighter. She can be dangerous. But, man, I really do think Ariane Lipski's kind of turned a corner lately. She's won 4 of her last 5, and outside of just the barring round 1 slip up against Priscilla, I thought she's looked pretty good lately. She's been able to keep these fights standing, and she's boxed a lot of these girls up. Her hands look really good. And if the fight plays out on the feet, I have here, she's not going to look like the underdog in the fight in my eyes. I don't want to say she's got the superior cardio, but she's definitely got the more proven cardio over 3 rounds. And when I look at Karine Silva, very, very finish reliant. I kind of feel like you kind of touched on it a little bit. As the competition gets harder, so do the finishes and stuff. And she has to, I feel like she, of course, has to get the fight down to the mat here. We've never really seen her win extended minutes from top position throughout her career. And even then, the judges are favoring a lot of the damage lately. So and then we've missed the plus money on her as well. So there's numerous things to me that do point in the direction of the value money line wise, 100% being on Ariane Lipski here. But I kind of think she's going to get submitted. It's one of those where that's where the value is. But if you ask me what I think happens more times than not, I think Karine Silva is going to get her down and submit her. I don't know how much confidence I have behind it, but I'm going to take Karine Silva to get the sub, cash my under 2.5 ticket. Now to the co-main at 205. Ryan Spann versus Bogdan Guskov. I have here, it's a doozy name-wise, but I feel like someone's going to sleep early. Both these guys have big power. I think both of them have questionable chins. Spann and Guskov in their last 14 combined fights, 12 of them have ended in the first round. That's why you see the under 1.5 at minus 255. And I parlayed that, man. Truth be told, I think that should be around minus 400. I think somebody's going to sleep in round 1 here. When I look at Bogdan Guskov, I think he's a little bit faster than Ryan Spann is with his hands and a little bit more unorthodox. He kind of keeps them low. And I do think that he is a lot to deal with in round 1. He tends to get in your face, throw a bunch of strikes. But his path to victory is a whole lot more limited than Ryan Spann. I feel like Spann can get the knockout. I feel like Spann has the better cardio. I feel like Spann has the ability to mix it up and even, get one of his submissions here. So I'm on the Ryan Spann side. I would never lay the price tag on him. He's just not that kind of fighter in my eyes to warrant it of a big price tag. But I think when the fight's over with, he might look like the big favorite because I do think he's going to get a round 1 finish. So I'm going to take Ryan Spann. Just happy if it hits the under 1.5.
Okay. This is our first true disagreement of the night, I feel like, because I'm on the Guskov side here.
I dig it.
I think that he's getting right now. I think right now it's really tough to know how good of a fighter he is. You throw him in there against a decade-long top 10 fighter in Volkan Oezdemir, who was probably the most fraudulent top 10 fighter that they had in the decade that he was in the top 10. But he's fought for the title before, so he's been in there with some of the highest level of fighters. And that's a really tough debut to have. And I think that he did pretty well in his bounce-back performance with Zach Pauga. I know that he's at Extreme Couture now, and I think that he's getting some really good, consistent looks at this point in his career. I do think that he's a little undersized for the division. I'm not even sure what I think they got him listed at 6'3", but he looks the same size or smaller than Sean Strickland whenever Strickland's at a camp. So I am a little bit concerned on the size, but Ryan Spann, I'm not a fan of him at all. I think that mentally he does not have it, man. Like even right now, he's got his Instagram set to private during fight week. And I think that that's a sign already of somebody who's, lets some of the trash talk, let some of the fans interacting with him get to his head. And he struggles to perform on fight night, even though he's a freak athlete with freak genetics and everything else lines up like where he should be an excellent fighter. But I think that he's consistently let himself down and not lived up to his potential. Whereas Guskov, still kind of unknown, but he's only 31 years old. He's in his physical prime right now. And I think that the current looks that he's getting and him being willing to, move out of, I don't know if it was Russia or Uzbekistan, but move out of there, come to the U.S. and train full time with one of the most active gyms in the world. I don't know, man. I think that this is his spot to shine right here. And at a plus 165, like I really like it. I'll probably play him straight. I'll probably play his TKO prop at plus 220. I do think that he's being set up right here for a pretty awesome finish. And Ryan Spann, I feel like recently, we're seeing the decline right here. I really do feel like that. He's only 32 years old, but when he gets finished really badly. I think, 6 of his 9 losses come before the 1.5 marker and round marker. He's getting finished in the first round or early second round consistently. And that's kind of the pressure I expect Guskov to put on him early. So I've got Guskov plus money by TKO. Out of all the crap fights on this card, that's the best spot I got, to be honest with you. And that's really, really sad. So, Guskov's the pick. I don't love it. But that's my take on it. Moving on to the main event, we have Matheus Nicolau taking Alex Perez. Shoot, man, this is like a crazy main event. Both guys coming off of losses. Alex Perez, you look at his record, it's probably the worst looking record on the Tapology screen I've ever seen in my life. Right. Like he hasn't won a fight in 4 years. He's 0-3. He's pulled out of I don't know. I'm sure some of these are his opponents, but he's pulled out of in 7 fights since then. And he's only 32 years old. He's only a year older than Matheus Nicolau. Like, what is that? And he gets somewhat of a pass because he's losing to guys like Figueiredo, Pantoja, and Makayev. So it is kind of tough to see where he's at. But Matheus Nicolau is no joke, man. I was picking him to get a title run. I was not expecting him to lose to Brandon Royval, and that's my only like knock on Matheus Nicolau leading up until this point was his chin. If he does get caught, he is subject to get put out. But outside of that, I feel like he's one of the most defensively sound fighters on the roster. And I kind of liken him to the Floyd Mayweather of MMA. He knows exactly what to do to win minutes, to win rounds. And I think he has all the potential of a really, really good fighter. The cardio to go 5 rounds. And Perez having, not so great a luck. I can't imagine that he's in the best mindset coming into this fight. Matheus Nicolau is exactly the type of guy that I could see frustrating his opponent. And I think that's probably what we're going to get here. Don't know what the line is. Let's see. Yeah, Nicolau minus 175. That looks like that's new. Yeah, he was 190 this morning, and now he's minus 175. So there's some love coming in on Alex Perez. Perez is probably going to keep this on the feet. He's going to have to push forward. He has wrestling to mix in, but we rarely see him use it. And Nicolau pops back up to his feet pretty good. Perez's defensive wrestling is probably good enough to keep it on the feet. I just don't think that he has enough finishing potential to stop the movement of Nicolau, who can probably outclass him. So Nicolau's the pick for me. That minus 175 keeps going down. I might find a parlay piece with him. So yeah, Nicolau's the pick for me.
Yeah, I feel like Alex Perez jumping back in here on short notice. I don't really know what to think about it. After he's out for so long, I do think it's good to stay active, to get right back in there again after having that fight with Makayev. But after you've had so much trouble on the scale in the past, I don't know what that's going to be like, having to cut weight again so short, And I also feel like he needs to wrestle to win here, because I don't like him to even win a round against Matheus Nicolau on the feet. I think he has to push his wrestling, and can he do it for 5 rounds after back-to-back weight cuts? I'm not too sold on it, man. I think Matheus Nicolau is clearly the better guy on the feet despite the chin issues. I feel like if Perez shoots any type of sloppy takedown, Nicolau has the ability to lock up a guillotine. I think his jiu-jitsu is really good, has the ability to maybe get a back here and ride out minutes. I keep coming back to Matheus Nicolau as well, man. So if that line is going to continue to come down our way, it's something that I might look at as well. I see the under 4.5 that was sitting at minus 120. Nicolau's been finished in every loss of his. Perez has been finished in 6 of his 8 losses. So the history of them being finished is there. I don't know how much finishing upside really either one of them have. It's like they get finished, but I don't know if either one of these guys are that dangerous enough to capitalize on it. So I'm kind of torn on if I'm going to be looking at that under 4.5. But ultimately, I think skill for skill, Nicolau is the far superior fighter, just truth be told, man. So I like Matheus Nicolau, and it's probably sub or decision. I think he's going to win a decision, or I think he's going to lock up a guillotine on a sloppy takedown attempt. Neither one of them have ever been 5 rounds. Another reason it could hit the under. I don't know, man. I don't know how much action, if I have any, on this main event. Monitoring that Matheus Nicolau line, clearly the side for me, though, as well.
Historically speaking, fight goes decision in a flyweight main event being plus 135 or better, it's probably plus EV,
That's exactly. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Weight class wise, plus EV, but when you see them finish in so many of their losses, it's kind of tricky at the same point too, man. Anything else you want to add to that one? Both on Nicolau?
Yeah. Okay. Just one more piece on why I don't think Nicolau is going to get knocked out. Perez, he pushes that forward pace, but he's not unorthodox enough to expose Nicolau like Brandon Royval was. I don't think that he's mixing in. Yeah, he's not mixing in strikes that Nicolau isn't going to see coming.
He's not like 5'11" with a knee that can hit a welterweight,
Exactly.
I think I'd have to look on Tapology here. I think Matheus Nicolau other knockouts like a damn head kick or something. So it's not like he's getting put out with clean punches,
And as the fight drags out, Nicolau being the more technically sound striker, I think he is going to start to find the reads and kind of expose him down the stretch if Alex Perez fails to mix in those takedowns and mix in some different strikes. I do think that he's kind of limited in what he can throw on the feet. So there's just another reason why I think Nicolau could really outclass him here.
Yeah, so it was Dustin Ortiz back in 2018, head kick. Head kick and a knee, and then even prior to that in 2012, it is a TKO by punches. All three of these are coming a minute and 11 seconds, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, a minute and 50 seconds. So it's like if you don't get him early, Matheus is going to get his reads. He's going to scoot around the outside, and it's probably going to take the fight from you. So I'm glad to hear us both on that side, man, and might even find myself on Matheus Nicolau this week. Appreciate you hanging out with us for all 13 fights coming off the hills, UFC 300. Hoping some fight like this, fight card, will live up to it. Like I said, I think we're seeing a lot of finishes on Saturday despite the lack of name value that we're seeing in this card. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, comment a little bit. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace.